The 13 large Galapagos Islands formed 3 to 5 million years ago, when undersea volcanoes created an island chain 960 kilometers from any other land. The organisms that flew, floated, or otherwise made their way to these islands were isolated. Over millions of years, these organisms adapted to their unique island environment differently than the species back on the mainland. In 1831, biologist Charles Darwin and the crew of the HMS Beagle set sail from England on what would become a 5-year expedition around the world. When they reached the Galapagos in 1835, the unique creatures they found there fueled Darwin's scientific curiosity. Darwin found many species he had never seen before. He also noticed differences within the Galapagos species from one island to the next, such as tortoises with different types of shells, and finches with different types of beaks. Darwin made detailed notes and sketches of the species he encountered and collected thousands of specimens. When he returned to England, he spent the next 20 years analyzing and interpreting his findings and doing further research in biology and geology. Finally, in 1859, he presented his groundbreaking hypothesis. In The Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, Darwin put forth a controversial argument for his day, that all species changed over time, or evolved. Darwin argued that species change over time and, as a result, become adapted to their environments. For example, the blue feet of this booby are an adaptation. Females are attracted to males with bright blue feet, so the males with this adaptation are more likely to reproduce and pass this trait on to their offspring. Likewise, if an adaptation gives an organism a competitive advantage over others of its kind, such as strong legs for swimming and diving here on Galapagos, that organism is more likely to survive and pass the trait on to the next generation. Over time, these beneficial adaptations can build up in isolated populations, like those of the Galapagos, and may give rise to a new species. Galapagos marine iguana provides compelling evidence for Darwin's ideas. It's believed that the ancestors of marine iguanas were originally land iguanas that may have come to the islands on floating logs. But food on these volcanic islands was scarce. During the competition for food, some iguanas found success by venturing into the waters. The land iguanas with slightly better tails for swimming or shorter snouts for eating off of rocks had an advantage over iguanas without these traits. Darwin argued that over millions of years, the iguanas with physical traits that made them good divers had a better chance of surviving and therefore of producing more offspring. Over the generations, a greater percentage of iguanas inherited these beneficial traits. Eventually, the marine iguanas evolved into a separate species from the land iguanas. Darwin called this process natural selection. Organisms with beneficial adaptations were effectively selected by nature to have a better chance of either surviving in their current habitat or occupying a new habitat. Darwin found creatures with unique adaptations all across the Galapagos, and modern researchers continue to find them. The swallow-tailed gull's big red eyes give them a competitive advantage over other gulls in finding food.
The swallow-tailed gull is unusual among gulls in that it has a very much enlarged eye, which is a beautiful adaptation for feeding nocturnally. The swallow-tailed gull feeds mainly on bioluminescent type organisms that light up the surface of the sea at night.
So these gulls have evolved to take advantage of a food source that no other gulls can. These adaptations help to ensure their survival. There is a different species of finch on each Galapagos island. Isolated on each island, each has its own unique behaviors and beak size and shape. Some eat like woodpeckers, some eat cactuses, and others use tools. But they each find food in their own way and pass their successful adaptation on to the next generation. Beneficial adaptations can also help species live side by side and still avoid competition. For instance, hawkfish with long snouts can coexist in the same waters as the short-nosed variety because one finds food in crevices while the other finds it on top of rocks and coral. A spectacular and seemingly negative adaptation can be found in many of the other marine creatures here. Their bright coloration would appear to make it easier for predators to see them.
And it's hard for us to understand as light-viewing human beings at the surface of this planet why these fish are so darn colorful. And with the sub, with the lights on, we're just amazed, kind of whacking ourselves in the head saying, why the heck is that fish bright red, yellow, orange, what have you? And we turn the sub lights off and allow our eyes to adapt to that very, very low light level, even 1,200 feet below the surface. And you realize that there is some light penetrating through this clear tropical water. And the fishes that are just jet black, which stand out like sore thumbs, but these very colorful fishes all of a sudden fade right into the habitat. They look like the sea fans. They look like the broken rock reef. That color is very adaptive. And why it is so beautiful is beyond me. I can't imagine there's an advantage to that.
So, a trait that would be harmful for shallow water fish is actually beneficial here in the deep waters of the Galapagos, and has become widespread in the marine population. Over 170 years ago, the amazing creatures of the Galapagos made Charles Darwin question where species come from, and they are still providing answers today.